No, my favorite one was the one that had the best script, you know. One week you'd like one guy, and the next week you'd like the other guy. No, they were all about the same.
How did you feel seeing those film clips at the honorary presentation?
Oh, I got a big kick out of it. It was amazing when they showed the one about the one part where the only argument I think I've ever had in show business, one of the few, was with that movie, making the retake. 35 days we sat in a rehearsal hall doing that. Yeah.
On a previous visit to Ball State, you expressed your displeasure at television, the state of television these days. There's a lot of violence, a lot of meanness on TV. With the Cosby Show on and all the family shows that are coming on this season, how do you feel about TV now?
Well, it's the same as it has been. It gets worse every year, and right now it's 10 years ahead of schedule. No, they've got one show. I think basically they would like to get rid of Bill Cosby if they could, because there's not that many shows that can fill in for 24 hours of the day, you know, having that many of that the people will accept. And if they could lose him, the sponsors are now saying, give us more shows like that and we'll sponsor them. They're having trouble getting sponsors for television now. And the ratings have down about 35% all the way around. I don't pay much attention to it because I've never, like I said, I never allowed myself the luxury of self-pity. So I don't pay much attention to it anymore. I used to watch television with what they have now, like with an idea of the Cosby Show and the shows that they're trying to bring on. In 3 years from now, there won't be any actor entertainment at all. It's going to be special events, news, and sports. And they're educating the people to it now. Every 20 minutes, they stop with a news break. And when I left California, this is a true story. They said, we interrupt this program to bring you a news bulletin, and then they interrupted the news bulletin to bring another one after this announcement. I can just hear them any day now. We have this is a special news bulletin. Russia has pressed the button and the bomb is on the way. More after this message from our sponsor. Yeah, but those are all part of fear campaigns. Like when I got out of the Army, everybody was talking about bomb shelters, you know. So I said, maybe we ought to get one, you know. And, oh, hey, Catholics are fanatics. You kneel anywhere, huh? So I was going to get one until I read the fine print. It said 20 years to pay. Then I thought, gee, wouldn't that be great to have a bomb shelter? And you're down in that thing for about 3 weeks, see, and you come up and all your neighbors are standing at the door and you're the first fresh meat they've seen. So,
I'm from Cincinnati, and I'm doing a historical look at Cincinnati broadcasting.
Hysterical from Cincinnati.
Could I ask you about 3 questions?
Yes, sure.
They say up down there that you didn't work at WLW, that you did quite a bit of driving back then for a show called Avalon Time?
Avalon Time from Brown Williams and Tobacco Company.
What was that all about?
Well, it was a television show, a radio show, and it was on every Saturday night. And finally I moved down to Cincinnati. I stayed at the Gibson Hotel. And WLW is one of the first, after the Rudy Valley program, it was the first network program I ever had. And I was on for 1 year. And this guy, the head of the agency, he'd bring the script in and he'd say, that's funny. Yeah, that's not funny. That's not funny. Finally, I said to him one day, I said, at first I called the William Morris office and said, how much longer do I have a contract with these people? He says, as a matter of fact, it was up 2 weeks ago. I says, fine. I walked in, I said, here's the script. I says, now, if you tell me one thing in there that's funny and not funny, you can get a new boy for Wednesday night. We were on Wednesdays then. And I said, you can get a new boy. So the same thing. So I walked out, and I wasn't on the show. That was the last of that. So then a year later, after I had gone to California and made the movies and stuff, they wanted me again. And MGM the press department had put out, Red Skelton is MGM's answer to Paramount's Bob Hope. Well, I did this comparison. I've got to kill right away. So I had a chance on Tuesday night to be the first program on the air that night for Swan Soap. Burns and Allen took it then after that. Then Amos and Andy took it. But I says, no, I want to follow, or I could follow Bob Hope. And for less money, I said, I'll follow Hope. Because I figure after there's no more Hope, then comes Skelton. So I did, to kill this comparison, you know. And then it came out in Winchell's column, Walter Winchell's column. Naturally, Skelton would get a big rating following Hope. But then when I started that I Duded stuff and we passed him, that killed all the comparisons between Hope and I.
But those of us who remember you from television, you know, you were such a visual comedian.
Yeah.
What was the format like for Avalon Time?
Same thing, only I had picturesque jokes. I've always written jokes that are picturesque. Like a little kid sliding down the banister. Whoop, whoop. Oh boy, I never do that again. I was going south and I met a splinter going north. But see, you can picture these things right away. Most of the jokes that I wrote were all visual. Like down at the beach, I saw Phyllis Diller down there. At that time, I used Edna Mae Oliver. She was laying on the beach, and these two dogs came up, and she was asleep. And they looked at her, one dog says to the other, says, "You trying to figure out which one's going to bury this thing?" And the other one says, "No, I'm trying to figure out who dug it up in the first place." You know. So they were picturesque. You could see these jokes. So it was no problem changing into. Actually, radio, I was doing mime. The only time I ever got criticized was on the Rudy Valley program. I did the donut dunking bit. And Dinty Doyle of the New York Mirror, he says, of all the laughter, I've never heard such laughs in my life, but what the hell were they doing? You know, it was all visual on radio. It's like playing Marcel Marceau records, you know.
One more question, and then I'll let everybody. How did you start? What was your first professional job? And
I started out with a medicine show. A medicine show is a platform out on an open field, and you give a free performance and then sell the product. They call it television now. So I figured I was right back where I started, so I didn't lose too much. So that's how I started. And from there I went with John Lawrence Stock Company, Clarence Stout's Minstrels, and went with Hagenback and Wallace. Oh, I got something for you, Judy.
Okay.
Yeah. Here. I didn't know if it was Julie or Judy.
Judy.
Oh. Yeah. Judy.
Right.
There.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, I did this little thing for her this morning. The R is the head. And then it spells out Red Skelton. There you are, Judy. What?
Thank you.
Gee. See, when you get my age, they can't find your lips anymore. You know what was so funny this morning? I walked into the restaurant, and there was one of the ladies came up, and she said, "Can I give you a hug?" I said, "Yeah." Well, down south, you know, they know you're from the north, and they hug you to measure your neck for a rope, you know. So they gave me this little hug, and there's a rather large lady there. She's lovely. She says, "You haven't been hugged yet." So she hugged me. I said, "Gee, it's like hugging a rollaway bed." She says, "If I had a camera, I'd take your picture if it had a wide-angle lens." I said, "With you, it'd have to be an aerial shot." She was nice, though. We laughed and had fun, you know. So that's about what it was. I started with that way. And it was with the Goldenrod, which is parked in St. Louis now, with H.L. Minke. Was the captain of the ship at that time. There was Hittner owned them. They were Hittner showboats, the Cotton Blossom and another one. I forget the name of it right now. But
one more and then I'll stop. I promise. You know?
God, he is pushy, isn't he? No.
Do you remember much about WW back then, or Peter Grant, or any of those?
No, Peter Grant was the announcer, and he did an imitation of in the commercials of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and they made him stop it. "My friends, this is a cigarette. During the Depression years," because it was 10 cents a but he sounded just like Roosevelt. But they asked him to stop it, you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's quite all right. Thank you very much. You doing a book?
In some of your MGM films, it's been written that Buster Keaton contributed some gags, and I was curious What kind of contribution, if any, he did?
No, they did some of his old movies. They took the plot and rewrote them.
But he didn't actually do
No, no, he never. I met Buster Keaton. As a matter of fact, I paid for his funeral. But out of respect for him, no, he didn't. He was never on the set. Never came around. And most of the things was Sylvan Simon was the director that I like so much. He's the one that took his name off of the picture called The Southern Yankee. He says, I didn't direct this, man. He said, the writers, he says, you've got one gag in the whole picture. That's where the flag turned around. And that was from a Buster Keaton picture.
Red,
Yes.
you were at MGM for so many years. Louis V. Mayer, of course, is a very controversial figure in Hollywood history. What was your impression?
I think Mr. Mayer was one of the most talented men. He knew people, and he was a gentle man. He was very kind. I used to visit him when he had leukemia in the last years of his life. As a matter of fact, he gave me great ideas on my television show. He says, you know, when you announce your guest stars for the following week, you can say, and also our special guest star, Freddie the Freeloader or Clem Cadiddlehopper. I said, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So that way you're advertising the character along as a guest, you know. And then he says another thing, I never know when the commercial is over. Why don't you have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3? I said, that's fine. So Mr. Mayer was responsible for those things. Yeah. No, he was a fine gentleman. He knew what he was doing, and everybody resented him, you know. One guy that was kind of rough was Harry Cohen. I don't know if you ever read Thomas's book.
Yes, I read it.
Yeah, the quote that I did. they said that the newspapers came out, and they said, everybody was saying, well, he couldn't have been too well disliked because of the fact that there was over 5,000 people showed up at his funeral at the studio. I said, it's horrible. I says, well, it goes to show you give the public what they want, they'll turn out. But he was a mean man. He was mean. He walked into Sylvan Simon, and he said, who was the head of the programming at the studio at Finish there, and he says, what are you doing here? He says, well, I came to work. He says, you don't work here. Simon went home, went into the bathroom to shave, and dropped dead. So he was kind of rough, you know. Some of those guys were rough. Others were very gentle. Why Frank Freeman was nice, you know. They're all nice. Everybody's nice if you want to take time to look for their nice points. Even Harry Cohen. I was doing a home movie at that time, and I was down at the Sahara Hotel, and Howard Hughes was at the table, and I said to him, he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing a home movie. I says, but I got to find a vulture. He says, we tried Harry Cohen. I was doing a desert thing, you know. Yeah.
Danny Thomas is coming back to TV in a new TV situation comedy. Lucille Ball's coming back. What do you think of their returns, and have you thought yourself about coming back to TV?
I do. I have been doing 125 concerts a year. The last 2 years I've cut it down to 75 concerts a year. I meet more people, and I have just as much fun. I make more money than I've ever made in my life. That with my oil paintings and the galleries I have across the country. I have 36 galleries, 10 in Honolulu and 3 on Maui. And I have more fun going out meeting the people. And the hassle of... right now, television is for the technicians. They're having a field day, you know, all the clever things that they're doing. And when they change to color, that hurt comedy more than anything, because the director sits there and they get in love with some shot they see. Hey, hold that. Boy, that looks nice, that looks nice. They throw your timing and stuff off. But when it was in black and white, everything moved, and it was, I think, more colorful than in color. You know.
Have you been happy with your HBO appearances?
No, I don't work for HBO anymore. They had in my contract, it says that the show in front of me and the show behind me can have no violence or vulgarities in it. And the last time it was on, they had a show in the front of me and the back of me that I wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't show in a hook joint. And so I said, no more. So they wanted me to do another one. I said, no way, you haven't got enough money to pay me. Because if there are 3 things on in a row, you don't remember who said what. So that's why I tried to get it that way. They were very nice at first, so I don't do them anymore. I've turned down the offers. No.
Have you thought about doing another movie?
Yes, I'm going to do a movie. I'm going to do a movie that's called The Merry Month of Christmas. And I have written a script that not this year or next year, but after that. We're working on it now. I contact all the colleges and I send this play with music. It's a musical into the colleges. They rehearse their drama groups, and one person rehearses my part. I go in 3 days before, and I do the play with them for the week. And then the monies from the play goes to the college students for their tuition. And then we're going to take the best actors from the different colleges around the country. We photograph it as we go along. Take the best actors, each one, let them all play the parts. And then they are all paid commensurate to what the movie will do. Then we'll sell it to television, if there's any entertainment around at that time. Yeah. So I think it'll be a nice idea.
What did Ed Wynn, Ed Wynn was one of your favorite characters. What other comedy heroes did you have?
Well, I like them all. I liked Eddie Cantor, Al Jolson, and Bobby Clark, Clark and McCullum, and I like them all. But Ed Wynn was the one who really encouraged me to go into show business. I was selling papers in Vincennes, Indiana. This gentleman came up and he said, what do you do for excitement in this town? I said, well, there's a big road show in town tonight with a big New York comedian named Ed Wynn. He said, oh, you're going to see the show? I said, no, I don't have that kind of money. So he bought all my newspapers. I had about 6 papers left, and he gave me $1 for them. They're only 3 cents a piece. So in those days, you tear the headline off and the banner of the paper, and you take it back in, you get your $1.50 back. So I turned the papers back in, and I went home and I told my mother. He said he knows the manager of the theater. If you come back, then I'll see that you get a seat. So I told my mother, and she says, well, here's a dime, nickel for car fare home and a nickel for popcorn, but come right straight home after the show. So I said, fine. So I went down. Here's this man standing in front of the theater. So they put me up in the balcony. I'm seated there, and when the curtain parts, the traveler, and out stepped this gentleman. I said, that's Ed Wynn. I said, that's my friend. I didn't know who he was, you know. I said, that's my friend. So at the intermission, I went backstage, and all the stagehands knew I was stage struck, you know. I was about 8 then at that time, because when I was 10, I went into show business. And I told him, I said, I've always wanted to be a comedian. Boy, this is something. And I went backstage, and they says, get away, come on. And he said, no, let him in, let him in. So he took me backstage, and the asbestos curtain was down. He says, have you ever seen an audience before? I said, no. So he held me up to the asbestos curtain. I looked through the little peephole, and I saw the people coming back into the theater after the intermission, and I fell in love with them. And it was a very strange thing last night. After I received this, I looked at the audience when I said it looked like a garden, that a whole total recall came back, and it seemed like there was a black thing around my eye at that moment, just for a split second. I don't know if you've ever had a total recall. It's frightening at times, you know. But for a moment, and I think that's why I said about the flowers and stuff. But then he says, those are the border lights in front of there, footlights, you know. He says, and these are called the wings, and this is the traveler. This is full stage, you know. Show me that. He said, if you want to do comedy, remember, yes, do comedy. You must do funny things. You don't have to say funny things. Do funny things. And then what you say becomes funny. So the scene now changes. We'd been friends, and I kept in touch with him all these years. He's getting ready to do his first dramatic role, Requiem for a Heavyweight. And so I went down for a fitting early on Monday morning, and it was on a Wednesday. I go down for a fitting for the show next week because I was going to make a personal appearance and I couldn't come in on a Monday, so I went in early, day after my show. There's a guy, there was no cars around, just my car pulled in, another car parked there, and there's somebody sitting in the car like this. So I looked, I said, gosh, that's Ed Wynn. He was drunk, and he didn't drink. See? I said, Ed, what's the matter? He says, I can't do this thing. He says, I'm not going to do it. I said, sure you are. You'll be great in the part. What difference does it make? Come on. So I stayed with him all day. Later they did on Playhouse 90 the story of Ed meeting the little boy on the street and then the boy meeting him again. So I watched the show on the kinescope, and after the show was over, I sent him a telegram. I says, "Dear Ed, you were wonderful, but remember, just do comedy." He was with me. He was on my show. He called up and he says, "I'd like to be on your show." He says, "I've always wanted to die on stage." So I says, "Okay." So we wrote a script real quick and around him, and put it. And he died 2 weeks later. Myself and he and his doctor were the only ones knew that he was dying from cancer. You know, so he wanted to be on my show. And then I told the audience what I've just told you about how he encouraged me in show business, you know. Next night, as they walk off that night, they hear all of this applause and they live with this all day long. Then when they go back out the next night, they tell the first joke. It got the same amount of laughter as it did the night before, but they forget that they're new. So that right away panic sets in. They become a victim of laughter. They've got to hear a laugh. So they either insult someone in the audience or they use a four-letter word to shock people. And I don't care who you are, when you hear these things, man or woman, you may laugh at the time out of embarrassment, but when you leave that theater and your personal dignity returns, you think twice. And that's why these fellas don't actually last that long. They have no longevity to them. And they become victims of writers. The writer says, well, Shields and Yarnell, then they on my show. I said, now the next time, don't do the mechanical thing, because he said, well, you did Freddie, you did Clem all the time. I said, no. You saw Clem 4 times a year. You saw Freddie 4 times a year, Deadeye 4 times a year, and people look forward to it. I said, how many times can you pour milk, beer, orange juice and stuff down the front of you doing this? I said, so either make the writers come up with new things. I said, you're a creative person. You come up with it. And so they said, that's a good idea. Yeah, they did. But then they got to arguing about who was the best in the act, and they split up. Even got a divorce, which is sad, you know, because they were nice. They were good people, both of them. Yeah.
What do you think of Lucy going back on TV?
I haven't thought of it. No, I think she'll be fine. She'll be fine. I'm just not enamored with the whole thing, you know. I'm getting this award on Sunday night, and they've talked to me for 3 weeks now to accept it. I don't know what the big thing. It's a cover-up. They said that I was reaching children. I was in 8th place when I went off the air. I was never out of the top 15 all the time I was on. And they said I was reaching children and elderly people, but I wasn't reaching the buying people, like the college students. For the last 16 years, I've been playing colleges. And these kids flock in, little tiny ones. I remember, you know, I have a new thing now. People walk up with their children and they say, you know who this is? The kid says, no. He says, this is Red Skelton. He says, oh, we have one of your books, or we have one of your plates, or we have one of your reproductions, you know. So I have a whole new audience that way.
How about reruns? Have you ever thought about that?
I own them outright.
Are you going to?
CBS wants to buy them. And well, they own the first 10 with me, and the last ones I own myself.
Are you going to put them out again?
Oh, I don't know. For what? You know?
Look at the audience, the Honeymooners, and Jack Benny. And
Yeah, I saw them. No, they're very good. They're very good. But I'm just not that interested in it, you know? Why take the heartaches? He's been gone for 16 years. He should have stayed away, you know? One of those things. I'll tell you, basically, the truth of the matter is my shows weren't that good, but it was a show that the whole family got together. I made a new hearth out of the television set. Everyone gathers around. College students walk up and they say, well, I loved your show. That was the night the whole family got together, you know. That's nice. Now they say they make an announcement, this should have parents' guidance. This is an R-rated movie. They say to the kids, you can't watch this, go up to your room. So the kid goes up to the room and turns it on. Hey, you know. See, those R and X-rated movies means that children under 17 can't go to the theater to see them. They have to wait for 3 months to see them on television. No, all these young people, and Lucy, everybody, she's going to present me with that award, you know. And but when they said that I wasn't reaching these people, says demographics said this. Hey, well, CBS finally found out they don't use demographics anymore. Demographics is great to tell you how much wheat was growing last year, how many soybeans was growing, how many people own television sets, but it can't tell you human emotions. And that's what my whole program was. Basically, I reached out to the people because I like them, and they can see it when I'm on there. When I do things, I blush. I'm as embarrassed for saying the joke as they were for listening to it, you know. And basically, that's what the whole thing was. It was a charm to. Now, whether you can have this now is another thing, you know.
What was your favorite medium? You've been in just about every aspect.
All of them. They were all great experience. They're all wonderful. I could go back to any of them I wanted to, you know, if they were around. Yes.
Well, when you jump from TV, from movies into essentially TV, you're really at the peak of your film career. Were there any anxieties about there? Was there any regret that you sort of stopped your film career?
No, I was interested in television in 1922. My brother showed me a Popular Mechanic magazine, had these big, huge discs that they're going to show pictures of people right in your living room. No kidding. And I was interested in this all the time. So when I signed my contract for television, I bought my contract back from MGM and also bought my contract from the William Morris office. I said, look, I know as much about television as any of you do. We've all been in it for 20 minutes, you know. So I said, let me make the mistakes on my own. And if I had listened to them, I'd probably been on 1 year like every other comic that was on, you know. But I wanted to do what I wanted to do, go out and talk about people. And the things that they come up and say to you, this is true. A little lady came up to me, and I can't do dialects, but she says, Red Skelton. She says, you got to be 80. I says, no, I'm 73. She says, you're 80. I said, no, I'm 73. She says, come on, I've been around, you're 80. I said, okay, I'm 80. She says, you don't look it. And I use these things on the stage. And this is a true story. I was sitting in a restaurant, and the theater's sold out. And a lady got in this restaurant with her little boy, and she says to him, do you want to see Red Skelton? He says, no. She says, then eat. I haven't used it on the stage yet. I'll try it someday. I get enough nerve.
Sunday night at the Emmys. Well, you're going to leave here in a hurry and.
Yes, I have a private jet flying me back.
Sunday night, Indiana resident Jim Davis is guaranteed to win an award for Best Animated Feature because he's the only one nominated. David Letterman and Shelley Long are the co-hosts.
I don't know. In Vincennes, where I lived, they had an election, and nobody. I ran against nobody and was defeated. So he can still lose the Emmy, you know.
But Shelley Long and David Letterman are the co-hosts. They're both from Indiana. You're from Indiana, and you're getting a special award. How do you feel about all these Hoosiers ganging up on television all this time?
Well, this is the greatest state in the world, you know.
There you go.
Greatest place in the world. The sun rises in Richmond and sets in Terre Haute. Yeah, they're just now finding this all out, you know. They begin to hear about us with Wendell Wilkie. Yes, dear.
You've done so much. You paint and you compose and you act. And is there anything left that you haven't done that you want to do?
Yeah, dear heart, take the next breath. That's all I look forward to, is to stay healthy, and I feel wonderful. Every once in a while, I'll be thinking about something and I wander off, like just now, quick, like, you have it if you want it.
Would you hold it?
Huh?
Would you hold it?
Sure.
Look out, Red.
Oh, okay. You're going to take pictures of it. I thought you wanted to look at it.
No, they wouldn't.
She just likes looking
My
at
wife is real nearsighted. She wears, it looks like the bottoms of milk bottles, you know.
Just the bottom.
And she came in the other day, she had new glasses, great big ones, and I kept looking at her. She says, I found somebody that does windows.
Ah,
There. How's
we
that?
couldn't see your face.
Thank you, Red.
Okay. Now, if any of you haven't had a chance to read this on television, send me a note and I'll mail it to you.
Where'd the the sense of humor come? Did your parents have it? Were you brought up in that kind
Oh,
of...
everyone has a sense of humor. Everyone's pantomimists. Children, for instance, from the time they're born, they're smart. These kids are smart when they're first born. Everybody waits on them and stuff. Why, you know, it's like the kid was 9 years old, never spoke a word for 9 years. And finally one night at the table he says, I can't eat this stuff. They says, he talks. All these years we've been catering to you and everything, and you've never talked. How come? He says, up till now everything's been okay. You know? So everyone has a sense of humor. Little babies, they're smart. That's why they don't speak for a year, you know. And then it slips out. Dad. Because they wait on them. Oh, no, what is it you want, baby doll, you know. Gosh.
Could you do your clothes?
I tell you, you know what? I wave, but I've never used that as a gimmick of any kind. Like people come up and say, will you sign an autograph? I had a music company come up and wanted to do an album called May God Bless. I said, you don't have enough money to make me do that. I do it to finish the show because down deep in my heart, it's my only way of saying, I hope that you find the same happiness and the same success in life that I have. And I don't know of anybody better to wish it through. I don't think anyone should say, God bless you, because they shouldn't make demands like that. And people ask me, they say, how come you're nice to everybody? I said, well, I've never met God in person. I was taught that a man was made in God's image. And I'm nice to everybody. I've never met him in person, and the next guy just might be him. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember from your 1977 press conference here at Ball State that you have a special philosophy, almost a ritual, that when somebody does you wrong,
yes,
that you and your wife will sit down and think about...
we have iced tea. We have iced tea. It's sort of like a little ritual, you know. And we think of 5 of the nicest things about the person that's hurt us. And then if they hurt us again, we sit down and do the same thing again. Think of 5 of the nicest things. The third time, I light a candle. I pretend they're dead. You can't bring back the dead, and you have respect for them, so you never mention it again. So I can walk up the street and see someone who has been associated with me and walk right by them and not even recognize them. It's that strong. That way I don't play God with anybody, you know. I block out my mind. Like I started to tell you a while ago, you wander off and you think about things. I was just thinking now, people in hell, where do they tell people to go? These are the things that bother me. You know? Like a Taco Bell is at a Mexican phone company.
We just can't seem to keep you out of Muncie. We've been here 3 times now.
I go home every night. Imagine their problem.
What keeps you coming back to certain cities on your tour, and will you keep coming back?
Well, I haven't been here for about 6 years, 7 years. How long?
5 years.
Oh, yeah, 5 years. So when I play engagements, I never go back again for about 5 years, 6 years. You know.
Are there certain cities that you like going to?
No, the people are people everywhere. They're all the same, you know. You walk down the street and people are nice. They all walk up and watch the expression on their faces. That's rewarding. You walk down the street and you see somebody come along and all of a sudden they go, well, they're going to keep that smile on their face for at least 20 minutes. Like in restaurants. I'll be sitting way on the other side of the restaurant. I know that when they go out, because I've heard people as I walk by, they don't know you're walking past them. Who do you think I had breakfast with this morning? You know? So that's rewarding. I mean, that's nice. So going back to cities, and all the same. But I do like to come in early, so I can get in the same cadence as the people here. So when I walk out on the stage, like in New York, is altogether different from Philadelphia, and they're that close together. You know, New York's the only place in the world where they ask you a question and answer it. You know, themselves. You don't ever say anything. And in New York right now, you can walk 10 blocks and never leave the scene of the crime. You know? On 4th of July, I was so surprised when they unveiled the Statue of Liberty. I thought she'd be standing there with both hands up.
No matter where you go, you seem to still continue the personal disciplines of writing, of
Yeah.
painting, and so forth. Oh, what is the daily discipline routine, if you will, that you follow?
I get up, I'm up around 5:30, and after I shower and shave, the first thing I do, I write a love letter to Mrs. Skelton, whether I'm at home or away, and I do a pencil sketch to illustrate something in the letter. Then I carry a small piano with me. I write 5 musical selections each day. And then I write an outline for a short story. On Sunday, I take the best of the 7 ideas and write a complete story. That way I have 365 ideas a year and 52 short stories. 20 of them I publish. I publish 20 books a year, only 10,000 copies. And they're regular for people, really fans. I have a mailing list of my mail order business, over 750,000 people. So we just pull names out, boom, and mail them, and then the brochures, and they come back, they order them, you know. And what they do is they can order the book and read it. If they don't like it, they send it back. We charge $2 for the whatchamacallit. If they do want the book, we charge them then the $20, and I autograph it to them personally and number it and send it to them.
If I
So-
may, also, you...
Then I do my concerts. I have the rest of the day to do myself. Then when I'm through with my concert at night, be 11 or 12 o'clock, I paint till 2:30 in the morning.
Oh. If I may, some years ago, you had wanted to put together a performing arts institute for young
Yes,
people?
we had the land, we had everything already. But in walked the musicians unions up in Rancho, California. There's not 150 people there. They said I had to have 21 stagehands. I says, for what? And they said they had to be union. The teachers' unions walked in and said that you have to hire these. When we got through with all the different things, the electrical union, the stagehands union, and the musicians union, 22 musicians, you have to hire professional. It's all new rulings that they had. It would have cost me $8 million more than we had appropriated for this thing, and we had around $10 million as it was. And so then I thought, well, this is stupid. Why not just play the colleges and do what I'm going to do? Let them put on the play and me go and get in it. Be the same thing, and you can. But we were going to have buses and stuff and travel around the country with them, and then they have on video the lessons, and they sit there and watch it. You know, they can sleep just as well on a bus watching television as they can at home. But would have different actors and professors and people who are well versed, directors, producers, to talk to the children by video. But it ran so much that I said, forget it. You know, why do this for what? Then, if anything happened to me, the state walks in and takes it for the tax, because it would run so high that it would be an impossibility. And I don't want anybody, I'm a car buff, and I don't want anybody taking my 16 cars and selling one because they need a gas for themselves, you know?
Thank you.
How much improvisation came out of in the movies? I mean, how much did you interact with
The Southern Yankee you saw last night, the only original thing that was in the original script was the 2 flags. The rest of it was ad-lib from start to finish. Believe me. And most of my pictures, they let me put in whatever I wanted to. And you know what I used to do? I used to lie to them. See, I'd take my movie camera. I used to have one of those Oricon sound cameras, and I would go shoot something. I would go to a theater after dark and get on the stage with the curtain up there with lights and stuff, and then take a few people with me, you know. And I would do routines on the stage. Then I'd go to the studio and they'd say, we need a bit for, because Simon used to say to me, we're going to need a bit up in here. Can you come up with something? I said, sure. So I would say, I used to do a thing in vaudeville. I call house. There's a film, it's laying on the desk. Look on the shelf, the 4th film over, and bring that thing out, will you? And send it over to the studio right away. So then they would run it on the moviola, and they'd stand there. Now they're panicky. They need something. Say, yeah, that's great. That's good. That's good. You should do that with every picture, you know. They didn't know, these people. As long as they got a laugh. You know.
Who was your favorite director that you worked with?
Sylvan Simon I liked best of all. I liked them all, but Sylvan Simon, he had a great sense of comedy. He was a very gentle man. He wrote a book on comedy, by the way, and also on photography. And as far as photography is concerned, my father-in-law was Greg Tolan, who did Citizen Kane, Best Years of Our Life, Wuthering Heights, and quite a few pictures. And my wife, that I'm married to now, Lothian is her name, Lothian Tolan. I pushed in her baby buggy when she was little. I used to go over and visit with the Tolans, you know, and she was just a little tiny thing, and I'd push her up to the corner in this stroller, they call them, I guess, and back to the house and stuff. So her mother reminded me of this before we were married. She said, you know, you used to go over at the tennis club, you used to push. I said, oh my gosh, I've forgotten all about that, you know. It was her. And then my wife, I was married to for 28 years, knew that she was dying. And she said to Lothian, if you see your way clear, you take good care of him and don't let anyone hurt him because you know him better than anyone. So that we were married. And then on the day that our son died, 10 years later, and the very second, she hurt so bad because medications was doing no good for her. Had cancer of the liver and of the kidneys. And on that very second, she committed suicide, which is a great loss. As a matter of fact, on the 17th was her birthday, but we still send flowers every birthday and even on our anniversary and the day of her death. But, well, that's another thing. It's a low note to leave things on, isn't it? God, you're short. You write short stories, huh?
Right.
There's a little
We have
fella.
another question over here.
Yes.
Mr. Skelton,
He was stretched out there. I thought he was asleep.
incidentally, I used to call you Red Skelton when I was a little kid.
Yeah,
Like,
people do that. They Red Skelton, you know.
After entertaining for so many years during times of war and the Depression and all, has there ever been a time where you've had an audience or a certain era where you said, geez, you know, people just aren't going to laugh, things are too bad?
No. I've been very fortunate that way. People are people. Only one town. You couldn't, to this day, pay me enough money to go there. I went to Stamford, Connecticut. Eh? And I walked out on the stage. No response. I was there for 3 days. Well, the flop sweat starts coming out, you know. You hate the streetcars, the sidewalk, the hotel. You hate everything, you know. On Sunday night, the last show, sound in the audience. So I heard and finished the act. I walked off the stage, and standing on the stage manager says, take a bow. I said, do what? He says, take a bow. I said, what for? I go out and I bow. He says, you better do an encore. I go back out. Now the flop sweat's really coming out. You know, you don't hear anything. So I come off and he says, boy, they love you. He's looking through a thing on the wall, looking out at the audience through this peephole. He says, they love you. I said, they love me. I don't even believe there's anybody out there. I said, turn on the house lights. Let me say, they turned up the house lights, and it's an all Chinese audience going.
Play a lot of colleges, and there's every generation, you know, the parents bewail what's going on with the kids, and that the kids are going crazy. I mean, it happened in the 50s, happened in the 60s, it happened in the 70s, now it's happening in the 80s again. It's always something new that's going wrong with the kids, and it's demoralizing them, and everything's wrong. What do what are your thoughts on this, and what do you see when you go to colleges and you see the kids?
I don't see any of these things that they talk about. I have one thing that I say to the students, like in a class I'll go to. So one of the greatest things to try is love, and really mean it. And the best way to find out if it works or not, try it on mom and dad. And if it works on them, then try it with a stranger. But for the dope and all these different things that we hear about now, I've never seen any of the students. At one, but they moved him out real quick. But he was really spaced out. But I haven't seen any of these problems. It's there. They know it's about. That's the one thing I dislike about television. I remember in motion pictures, there used to be in those Kildare pictures, and if you had a syringe, you're going to give somebody a shot in the arm. They did this, and then they turned their back. You never saw on television. They show you which vein to put it in, where to buy it, and everything. You know, which is not good. I'm with a thing now, the Lilly Company, and And the Johnson's Company, I'm trying my best for the last 10 years to get them to change the name of drugstores to pharmaceutical or apothecary shops or pharmacy, because children do not have any fear of that word drugs. And they're making a big thing out of it now. They're blooming it up to where the curiosity is killing more cats than if they let it alone. And they're calling attention to it. They're not going to help by passing any laws or anything. People themselves, they must have their own dignity and their own self-pride. All my life, I've never gone to Hollywood parties and stuff because, well, have a drink. No, thanks. I didn't want any, you know. I can't drink anyhow. I have one drink, and they say, have another one. I say, no, I better not. Oh, I have another one. I take that. Then the next thing I hear somebody say, did he have a hat? But I figured if I had to run around with the people that's all they did was to drink and to be a part of them, I had to join them. I figured that this is the only way you can whip these things. Say, no, I don't want that. I don't need it. And keep yourself busy, you know. There's plenty of time. The trick is to apply it. What we do in this country, we suffer from a great disease called procrastination. And one of the things I think is like with tobacco, they've put out this fear. People used to light up a cigarette, take a couple puffs of it, and throw it away. It relieves their nerves. Now they've got this cancer scare for only one reason. That's so that they can sell this narcotics that they have on the market now to quiet people's nerves down. Because there's more money than that than there is in the other things. Basically, that's what I feel. And I have some proof of this, of what was said one year at a convention for the Medical Association, which I have on tape, and which is another whole new story. But by the students following those things, I think if they are interested in their own lives, not the other guy, who cares? If you got to have a friend like that, who needs him? You know, when they realize that, then they buck up and they can face life. We did. We went through the same things, you know. Like things that happened to us when we were kids. My mother, she was a great philosopher, though, tricky. She'd say, we're going to have company on Sunday, but we don't have enough chicken to go around. So now when they pass the chicken, you say you don't want any. Huh? Don't embarrass us now, because we got pride and dignity. So the dinner table, eat. I said, I don't want any. My mother said, eat. I don't want any. Now comes the dessert. Not that you didn't eat your chicken, so you don't get any dessert. My mother was sneaky like that. Yeah. We were very poor. We slept 4 to a bed until my brother Paul got married, and then there was 5. I never slept alone until I got married. Well, is there anything else I could sort of? I don't know if you've gotten anything out of this or not. Yes.
Yeah. Was there any influence from Charlie Chaplin's Tramp on your study of the freeloader?
No, none at all. The last Christmas card he ever signed was sent to me. I have it framed at home, and Ona sent me a letter saying that was the last Christmas card that Charlie signed.
Red, is there anything exclusively Hoosier which you have brought with you through the years? And so
Yes,
forth?
yes. Trying to be polite to ladies, number one. Still like lima beans. Corn on the cob, succotash, hush puppies. I got my wife hooked on hush puppies. There's a little restaurant up in Hemet, California that we go to, and they have hush puppies. She never heard of them before. I said, well, order a hush puppy. She said, what, do you eat shoes? I don't want. I said, no. I said, that's an Indiana dish, you know. Yeah, those things stay with you.
Thank you.
And I take time to give thanks for things. I say a prayer every night, and one when I first wake up, one for a good night's sleep, and the other for waking out of it, you know. But I'm not a religious fanatic of that kind.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This was taken when you were here in 77.
Oh, okay. Mhm. Who to?
Well, Marie.
Marie?
Mm-hmm.
M-A-R-I-E.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.